And we heard from the Minister today talking about our fishing, our primary produce, our produce has been getting into those markets. So there's a sign of hope for us as Maori that Asia may be one of the first parts, the large markets of the world that might start to open up faster than other parts of the world, like in Europe and in the US. So in that context, I wanted Simon to come and spend some time with us today to talk about his view about what's going on in Asia. So with that, I'm going to hand over to you, Simon, the head of the Asia New Zealand Foundation, to talk about trade as he sees it in Asia, and with potentially what are the opportunities for Maori. Over to Tania and Simon.
And Alistair.
And Alistair. Kei a koe, Alistair.
Kia ora tātou. In this basket here, I have names from the registration table. We're going to draw out one ticket, and I'm going to read out the prize winner. And then you come forward and collect your prize. This will happen at the beginning of the next 3 sessions.
Robert from Taumata will draw. And the lucky winner
Nā mana e nā reo a tēnā koutou katoa. Kia rangi nui e tui honei, kia papatua nuku e takato nei. Me tātou e tui tonu rā a te hunga ora e wainga ia rāua, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Kei te mihi anō hoki ki te mana whenua o konei kia koutou o Ngāti Porou. Kei te mihi, he uri tēnei e mihi atu ki a koutou no nai tūhoi me te whakatohia no pōtake ahau i reira o e tipua ke nā reira e aku nei pa ki tua atu i te nāhero o waiweka kei te mihi, kei te mihi. Kouau e harau ia Simon Draper. Kei te kite mai koutou i tēnā. Engari me mihi au, ko tania te whenua ahau, ko tania te whenua, ko te kai arahi o tēnei rōpū, te rōpū o tō tātou timuake o Simon o Asia New Zealand e kia nei i te reo Pākehā. Ngari i tuku atu tētahi o āku kōkara no nai tūhoi i tētahi kupu he ingoa Māori mō tātou i tērā tau. Nā reira ko te ingoa Māori o tō tātou rōpū ko te whitau tūhono. Ko te kaupapa o tērā, kia kite ai tātou i tēnei kupu te tūhonohono, ko tērā te mahi e pānaki, i tō tātou mahi o Asia New Zealand e pānaki a Asia. Te honohono i Aotearoa nei ki tērā takiwā o te ao. Nā ko te āhuatanga o te whitau e kore e taia te whati. Koera te tikanga o te whitau tūhono. Anō nei he take tino whakahirahira e pānaki tēnei āhua o te mate karauna. Aha koa, ko te mate karauna e haere huri ana te ao kei reira tonu tātou te iwi Māori e mahi ana te mahi mai Aotearoa ki ai e kore e taia te whati. Anā ko tērā anō hoki te kaupapa o taku timuaki, mō tāna kōrero kia koutou i tēnei rā. Nā reira, kei te tuku atu te rākau ki aia, kia Simon Draper, ki wainga ia koutou i tēnei ata. Tēnā koutou. Hara mai Simon, kei a koe te kōrero.
Kia ora. Thank you so much. Ina rao rangatira mā, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Simon Draper, taku inua. Ko Oniroa, taku turanga waiwai I Waiheke. I whanau mai a hau I Manurewa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. So I'm a Pakeha boy from South Auckland, who Chris would argue made the mistake of joining the government a number of years ago. And I'm really honoured to be here today to represent the Asia New Zealand Foundation. And I have the cruel and unusual punishment. I'm glad I've got Laura's, the British High Commissioner's mood lighting here, but I'm between two great orators with Laura and Ming Foon. But as we're talking about Asia, I thought I'd greet you in Asian language, and Ming's Chinese is much better than mine. So, Wide Han Yorobun, Papashil Tende, Shigunil, Iroke, Newo, Chushoso, Teidani Kamsamnida, which is Korean. All you need to know, thank you, all you need to know is there's 5 levels of honorifics in Korean, and I use the highest honorific with you. So, it's like I was talking to the president. Okay, so Asia New Zealand Foundation, Te Whito Tūhono, the unbreakable bond. Our mission, our job, is to equip New Zealanders to thrive in Asia. So we're 25 years old, and until recently, most of our work was involving sending New Zealanders to Asia and bringing Asian experts here to New Zealand. And if I'm being brutally honest, which Chris told me to do, I am actually here on false pretenses. Because whilst I'm grateful to speak to you today, I'm actually here for the day to listen to you. Because my staff tell me I need to listen more, and as I've got older in life, I've realised I need to listen more. But one of the other issues is, like the British High Commissioner, I was at FOMA, and I've spoken at a number of Maori business events about Asia, and essentially the feedback I get is this: yeah, we know all that. Of course Maori get doing business in Asia. They're practically family. So some of my words will be well known to you today. Yesterday in Auckland at the China Business Summit, I heard the Prime Minister talking about her visit to China. And she said the most memorable part of her visit to China was a very personal recollection from Premier Li Keqiang about the sense of connection he had made with Māoridom when he visited New Zealand. So the Prime Minister spoke about the need for New Zealand to better reflect its Māori identity with Asia. Now, I've banged on about this, for those of you who have listened to me before, for quite a long time. And I know from this audience, many of you already know it. But it was frustrating in a way to hear this at this business summit yesterday as a revelation. That said, it is a really important and positive message, and it's one that needs to be told over and over until people get it. So in many ways, I know the last thing you need is an old, fat, white guy like me standing up talking to you about Asia, but I ask you to indulge me. So at the Foundation, just a little bit about us. Our core mission, equipping New Zealanders to thrive in Asia. New Zealand's geography is not going to change with COVID-19, and Asia is going to continue to be important. As we all know, 7 of our 10 largest trading partners are in Asia, and I'm going to make the argument that they will probably become even more important to us as globalisation, COVID sort of takes globalisation down to regionalisation a bit. We've been working at the Foundation quite actively to work out how we can better represent Te Ao Māori. We're a national organisation. We provide a lot of opportunities, but I have to say where we've failed is we have opportunities for rangatira to go to Asia, to experience Asia, and we don't get as many applications from Māoridom as we would like, and so I'm hoping we can over time change that. We're working with Tupatoa to increase Māori participation in our internship program offshore. We support Māori entrepreneurs. Kerry Nathan was there yesterday. She said she wrote a really bad proposal and someone accepted it to fund them. Well, I was the guy who accepted it to fund them, and that had started her journey into China. We have a Southeast Asian ASEAN Young Business Leaders, which I'll speak about a bit later. With Te Taumata, we're working on ways to connect with Indigenous groups in Asia, and it was good to hear the Minister talking about the work with First Nations in Canada. I can't help but say when I go to Taiwan and introduce myself, I often get a mihi back at me from the Taiwanese, and likewise in Japan. I do want to acknowledge the support that Tānia Te Whenua has brought to the organisation as we start this journey. And we have Te Kahui Māori members of our leadership network, people like Ben and Pania Matthews and your own Josh Wharerenga, who has been really helpful in guiding us. Yesterday I spoke with someone, Pania Tyson Nathan, who will be known to many of you and who sends her warm regards, about what I could usefully share with you today. So here goes. It's going to focus on Asia, challenges and opportunities, part of the COVID recovery process, and what we know about the role that Māoridom is going to play in Aotearoa's trade relationship. Last year we did some research, we do it often, but this was research on the Te Ao Māori perceptions of Asia. It was done by Ihi Research, and it took on the views of 1,400 Māori, representing 80 iwi. 147 respondents answered in te reo. And what it told us is what we already know in this room: how naturally well-attuned Māori are to engaging with Asia, irrespective of how much knowledge they feel they had of Asia or contact they had with Asian peoples. Cultural norms, manaakitanga, respect for elders, the importance of hosting and sharing food, and storytelling role of Indigenous craft are all important in Asia too. 60% of Māori said it was important for New Zealand to engage culturally and economically with Asia. When we asked Māori who they felt warmest to as to other people, who do you feel, connected to? It was the Japanese. Māori feel warmer towards Japanese than any other cultural group. While 60% of Māori say knowledge of Asia is important, fewer Māori felt that they benefited from that relationship. And I spoke Korean because I understand one of the very first Asian engagements you had in Gisborne was with the Korean people in their forestry sector. Only 8% of Māori felt that enough is being done to equip Māori to thrive in Asia. So, New Zealand's future, politically, culturally, demographically, is tied to Asia. So I'm a dual British national Laura, but I have, I think if you look at the data, Asia is going to continue to be incredibly important for us. But I don't need to tell you that, because you already know. So what I thought could be useful for this audience is COVID-19 and what are the opportunities and challenges it's going to pose. So in terms of COVID across Asia, and as someone has said to me, Asia's a very big country. Asia is more than China. That's probably a good place to start. Across Asia, control of the virus and economic recovery is a bit of a mixed bag. Taiwan and Vietnam have the virus largely under control at the moment, but places like Hong Kong, South Korea, and Malaysia are going through ongoing spikes. Other statistics and COVID numbers from places like India and Indonesia show the virus rapidly spreading, and official figures likely to be well under-representing transmission rates. So one of the bits of news for people here dealing with Asia is we are in a bubble already here in New Zealand. What we are hearing from our friends in Asia is it is very much still it is affecting their daily lives. They are pretty much, a number of them, in lockdown level 3 or 4 now. So in terms of your engagement with Asia, don't assume what you have in New Zealand is what you've got across all of Asia, because it's not. Some parts are recovering quickly economically, notably China, which returned, I think, to growth in the second quarter, and as the third quarter figures are likely to be very strong as well. And as an old Prime Minister once said, John Key, it was China that saved New Zealand in 2008 from the global financial crisis. It wasn't really anyone else. Other parts of Asia, Singapore economy has suffered a contraction of 40%, but it too is expected to rebound now that lockdown measures are easing. Their government stimulus package is 20% of GDP, which you compare to ours is a huge amount of money being pumped in. In our export markets, Japan and Korea have pretty much kept us going, I suppose. They're doing okay, but Vangali has joined us, so he can talk more about that later. One of the things that we are seeing, and this came through the Business Summit yesterday, again for you producers, health has become increasingly more important for Asian consumers. So Zespri at the moment, they're talking about the vitamin C content of kiwi fruit. They're talking about the health benefits of it, and that the need for you with your customers to demonstrate that your product is healthy and you can trace it is going to become even more of a value as you export going forward. Greg Foran from Air New Zealand was talking about his time in China, the importance of trust, something that that Maori entrepreneurs are really good at, is building that trust. And this comes down to a second challenge, I think, that you are going to face. We are seeing in COVID, post-COVID, a lot of movement towards digital platforms. I think Zespri had gone 50% increase in their digital sales. So you're moving from business to business to consumer. So my question to some of the businesses here are, do you know the platforms? Do you know the difference between WeChat and Kaiko and Alibaba and Line? Because those are the platforms they're using. How are you going to, if the markets you're dealing with are moving to online, do you know what those platforms are and how you're going to be able to sell on them? The other thing that's happening in that space, and it comes down to a big part of your value add, is if a huge comparative advantage of Māoridom in business with Asia is that cultural connection, that affinity, that authenticity, how do you maintain that when you're not travelling there? How do you maintain that when you're increasingly going to be working digitally? In terms of what I can tell you about consumer confidence in Asia, we've been running some business surveys. We have 200 young entrepreneurs across Asia. We've been asking them, what are you seeing? What are you feeling? Unsurprisingly, their sentiment was pretty pessimistic. Other than health of staff and family, the main business concerns are around cash flow and customer base. That said, and maybe it's because they were entrepreneurs, but there was quite a sense of optimism that COVID-19 is going to give them a sort of bandwidth and space to innovate. It's going to force them to find new opportunities. It's going to force them to find new markets, and it's going to force them to reach new consumers. Asian entrepreneurs are telling us that they expect permanent changes to their business models. So in my, those who know me know I err on the melancholy at times. I've argued that the last sort of 50 years has been the exception, that we haven't entered a period of instability, we have exited a historical rare period of stability. That 1945 to 2015 was the exception. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is that the change and pressures that you are facing now aren't going to go away. They're not going to go away in a year or 2 years or 3 years, that we're in a permanent state of instability. Once even there's a vaccine for COVID. The great power relationships and all those things mean the certainty you've had for the last 50 years is probably gone. But others argue against that, and more power to their arm, but that's what I think. 90% of those responded said that air traffic links had been significantly disrupted, followed by land and sea transport. So the way we're going to do trade, like I say, business to business is going to change more to business to consumer. That's going to really affect, I think, the value proposition for lots of New Zealand companies. So as I said, do you know the difference between WeChat, Weibo, Kakao Talk, Naver, and understand the role of social media in different cultural contexts? One of the things we know from our research is the way that young New Zealanders see Asia, by young I mean under 30, is completely different from the way that I see Asia. And the way they learn about Asia is completely different. They don't learn about it from the mainstream media. They learn about it from food. They learn about it from gaming. They learn it from influencers. If you want to look at good soft power diplomacy, look at the Koreans. I have friends in Auckland whose children learn Korean just so they can follow K-pop songs. So that the way that they are learning about Asia is different from the way that I learned from Asia, about Asia. As I said, one of the things we're really grappling with as an organisation is how do you maintain relationships when you can't travel? Greg Foran was telling us yesterday from Air New Zealand that we'll all be able to travel soon. I have to say one of the things I got from yesterday with the Prime Minister and listening to business leaders is I don't think we're going to be doing much travel in New Zealand for quite a long time. I could be wrong and others may have better information than I, but every sort of side conversation I had was, maybe some students back in 2021, but that's a long way away. One of my constant messages at the foundation is that relationship with Asia has to mean more than we want to sell you stuff. And I've been critical of New Zealanders for being a bit too transactional in their approach to Asia over the last 20 or 30 years. And we need to talk about cultivating deep relationships that carry you through the bad times as well as good. And this is where I believe that Maori are particularly well placed, because you believe in a relationship first and a transaction afterwards. Whereas many New Zealand businesses go from a transaction first and then maybe we'll have a relationship. One of the really fun bits of my job has been learning about the rise of social enterprise in New Zealand. Again, it's something that is well known in Māoridom, it's well known in youth, and it's very popular across Asia. But it was new to me as a 50-odd-year-old Pākehā who had been in government and in business. The importance of kaitiakitanga, the importance of guardianship, the importance of protection of land and sea is something that you see in the Philippines. It's something that you see in Malaysia. It's something you see. We have this cool young woman who works with 50,000 farmers in Indonesia, selling product to the United States, but she has no contracts with any of them because it's a social enterprise. And one of the things that we've been finding is the Māori and iwi businesses often structured around the principle of a commercial goal driven by a social agenda is something that we see coming out of Southeast Asia in particular, and something I think that Southeast Asia is actually ahead of the curve. We've got a lot to learn from them. So what does the future look like? So we're going to be talking about opportunities for a more exclusive growth model, way in which Māori might drive that work. Challenge ahead is how we combine Māori values and approaches to long-term relationship development, which is key in Asia. Can't emphasise that enough. High-tech model, which allows us to go digital and reach consumers in no way. This will be crucial for your businesses here. And understanding how those platforms and models work. At the foundation, we want to contribute to that conversation, but it's, we're a relatively small player, but we like to think where we can add value to that, either through our business program, our entrepreneurship program, our cultural program, or our media program. So let me close, always a word that people want to hear. If I had a message to this audience, it's this. Asia is going to be vital for New Zealand's business, potentially even more important to us as the world sort of shrinks a bit under COVID. Our region becomes even more important, and the Asia Pacific is our region. That you in Māoridom, we know from data, we have data to back this up, you know it, we have data to do it, Pākehā world's still learning about it, you have an edge when it comes to engaging in Asia. So my sort of counsel, for what it's worth, is to trust your instincts. You have it right in this part of the world about engaging with Asia. We have to learn from you in many ways. So you have an advantage. in dealing with Asia. Asia is going to become more important. My counsel is maximise that advantage. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you all very much. I did say to Chris, I'm much better at answering questions than I am at actually giving speeches, as those who've heard them before. So please, if you have any questions, I'll certainly try my best to give you as direct and honest answer as I can.
Can we do that, please? And can I just ask, if you've got a question, if you can use the microphone. I've been told that the folks that are dialing in the live streaming, they can't hear the questions and they would like to hear the questions, please. Well, here we go. We've got a question. Yes?
You speak about the edge
Yep.
that we as Maori have in relation to having a connection with Asia. Can you share what that edge is from your perspective?
Yeah, so, I'm a bit, I'll give you an example of where it came from. I was, part of my role, when the Prime Minister travels, they often take a business delegation with them. And I've argued to my foreign affairs colleagues, well, that's fine, take a business delegation, but take a token like me, so that when the Chinese or the Japanese or the Koreans say, okay, we get New Zealand, you want to sell us stuff, what else have you got? They can just point to me and say, well, we've got Asia New Zealand Foundation, they do media, culture, Diwali, lantern, and things like that. It's been quite a hard sell with officials, it's been quite an easy sell with ministers. So I was on Prime Minister John Key's visit to Indonesia, and we met with President Yonido, who's an interesting guy. And we had a Maori business delegation and then the rest of us. And it was a formal welcome, and it was, 500 people. And President Yonido started off in Bahasa Indonesian, and he started with a proverb. And the Maori delegation started laughing because there's 100 words in Bahasa Indonesian which are the same as Te Reo Māori. So you go into this market where you've got 100 words of commonality. And as you know, words are more than just words. They are ways of thinking, they are meaning, they have all those things. So first of all, I think there's that you can't buy that sort of cultural connectivity. When Japanese students come to New Zealand, their preference is to be housed in a Maori household because they don't get laughed at when they take off their shoes. That when they go there and sit with groups of people eating, that's what they... So there's this automatic comfort. I mean, Ming may be able to explain this better than I, So there's a degree of comfort. So you get that. You get that Asia is cash rich, asset poor. Many Māori businesses are asset rich, cash poor. You get that their time, they are doing business for their children and grandchildren. Most New Zealand businesses are doing business for the next financial quarter or the next year. So your time horizon is the same. You will invest in time, you will sit and talk. So that's the edge, it's, I'm a product of the 80s in New Zealand. We sort of know the price of everything and the value of very little. You know the value of these relationships. That's what I think your edge is. Complementarity in products, trust, relationships that span generations. That's how I see it.
Kapai, I'm going to move us forward. I'm just going to say, Simon, that this afternoon or after lunch, you will hear from one of our whānau, Whaimutu Jews, who's the chairman of the Ngāti Forestry Program, that's had probably one of the longest relationships of forestry with Asia in South Korea, probably of any company. And it's a testament to the things that you're saying, that there's much to be learned. So that particular relationship has stood the test of time. More than one rotation of trees, so that's more than 30 years. And it's going strong. So it's a true testament that everyone will, most people in the room will know Whai. So Whai can talk about that particular practical example. Just a couple of last points for me. I think that also resonate with me is that not much travel that we can expect going forwards. We're going to hear from Vangelis. He'll share some views later in the day about his view about how the world is opening up or closing down or where it's going.
Yes, so Vangeli looks the healthiest he's ever looked. He's not like suffering from jet. He's like 10 years younger at the moment. It's just fantastic.
Everyone, you'll get to meet Vangelis later in the day to build on what Simon has said with us here today. And high tech. We're getting this theme that's coming through from the Minister, from Laura, from you too. It's a new way of doing business using technology. So with that, Simon, I really do want to move us forward.
Yep.
I'd like to thank you, and Te Taumata is working with you and your team in terms of how we might do some stuff to replicate some of the stuff we're doing elsewhere in North America. So thank you for the time, coming along today and sharing your views.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
So with that, everybody, I really, it's a